Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time for another little event that Gaijin are running for Polish Armed Forces Day. Now, Polish Armed Forces Day is a pretty fun one because Poland actually does a huge military parade, so you could probably find it on YouTube if you want to watch it. Highly recommend it, since Poland nowadays has just a ton of different vehicles that they follow around with. They're also putting Lanovski's P47M1RE on sale in the game, so you can pick that one up too. It is a complete copy of the P47M1RE, but it does have a unique camouflage on it. And also, Lanovski himself has a really interesting story of his kind of time in the armed forces. I would highly recommend it, since he's one of the guys who was jailed and then was released from jail to fight in the war and do all of these wonderful things in Britain. Then, there's also the emblem of the Polish Land Forces decal. All you gotta do is play 3 battles using US or British vehicles at rank 3 or higher, and you can get it. It's until the 19th of August, so you basically have the whole of the weekend to be able to get it. We'll have a look at Lanovski's P47, and also the idea of Poland actually coming to the game as a subtree. If you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe. Let's get into the review. So this is Lanovski's P47. If you haven't played this thing before, or if you just haven't played a P47 in general, what you'll find is an incredibly good multi-role vehicle. The really cool thing about the P47 is it has a lot of guns and also a lot of ammunition and a very powerful engine. This one being the R2800 57C with so much horsepower it can just chug around all day. So the vehicle in a realistic needs a bit of patience because of the fact that it doesn't have as good rates of climb as other vehicles, but it has a lot of speed and once again a lot of firepower and also fuel. So the vehicle can get into some very positive positions and do really well. In ground forces, you actually have 3 bomb drops. You have 2 1000s and 1 500. They all drop individually, meaning that this vehicle is incredibly good at dealing damage to the general enemy. Now, the other thing is you do get some really nice rewards on the vehicle too, so SL and RP are really easy to come by. The only negative about Lanovski's is there's already a P47-1MRE in the game already, and this is an exact copy of the one that you'll find under Lanovski's. So if you already have this as a premium, there's not really much point in the Polish one. But if you don't have it as a premium, then it's worth it. In ground, you have a really good lineup for 5.7. The only issue with this lineup is they put up the Hellcats, so therefore you can't really use them alongside of it. And also, you do have quite a lot of competition at 5.7 for planes to be able to run with it. You know, you have the AD, which is a very good CAS aircraft, same with the AM1 as well, and then also you have all of the fighters that you can bring in, including the F4U4B with its 20mm, and then even for premiums, the AU1 if you have it, very good, P59, amazing superiority fighter, and then also the 2 P47s too, plus the Spacefire, which exists as well. So as a vehicle, it's very good. It has a specific playstyle, but it can rule the skies with that playstyle. In ground, hitting with the bombs, using the 50 cals on light targets, and then also playing air superiority with the vehicle, using its speed. In air, going high, diving down, hammering people with patience, then going back up, and completely, you know, just continuing that trend, you'll do really, really well with it. But the question is it better than the competition, and is it worth the price? Well, if nothing's on sale, I would say this is a fantastic vehicle to pick up, but since, you know, things do go on sale over time, it's more of a question. I really enjoyed this vehicle. I think it's really good, but it might be a bit too pricey for some people. So the interesting thing about Poland and War Thunder is there's always been this kind of to and fro, what should really happen with it? Because Poland itself has a huge population, it's a huge country, and also at the same time has an incredibly proud history. And because of that, at least over the 20th century, has had a metric ton of different vehicles that have gone through it. A lot of people focus on the ground vehicles that have been around, but there has also been a lot of air vehicles, and also other vehicles that have turned up. And this has led people to believe that Poland should get maybe even its own independent tech tree in the game, and be able to kind of show off the Polish colours in full. which is fair. You know, the fact is, a lot of nations in the world have quite a lot of vehicles, and it would be nice to see them in one way, shape, or form. Now, Poland itself, I've never really seen as an independent tech tree, and if you have a look at the way that Gaijin has kind of handled it in the past, where they've added stuff like the Trzyniak, the Garland, and also even Lanovski's P47, all two separate tech trees, it doesn't really make sense to bring them all together into one. And also, they do have quite a lot of things which are pretty similar, but it seems like that doesn't stop them, with stuff like Israel, for example, being added to the game, even with the vast majority of their vehicles being the same or similar playstyles to other nations. But with Poland itself, what it smashes of is a good subtree, right? It smashes of that because they have all of the Soviet technology. They have a lot of really interesting, kooky kind of World War II, pre-World War II vehicles, which you could add in. And then, of course, modern day, they have just vehicles from everywhere, it seems. It's very much one of those places where they've just decided, it's time to buy everything. And obviously because of the threat of the Russians. Stuff like the Leopard 2PL, for example. They've also putting orders for the South Korean K2 or K1, whatever one that is. Then also the Americans with their Abrams, and even other nations are getting involved too, while also having some pretty heavy stocks of other vehicles as well. The Polish have a lot of vehicles, right? And a lot of them, as I said, are very similar to other nations, but it seems that when you have a look at the Benelux air tree, when you have a look at stuff like the Finnish subtree, that is the modus. That is the thing to go for, and where you start off with what would be familiarity, and then you add other things to the tech tree to make it unique. For example, they added the Finland subtree, then they added stuff like the T55M, right? For the Benelux stuff, you have a lot of vehicles which are pretty similar to other nations, and then you have stuff like the Fokker GR1. And the idea is you give people a bit of a indigenous hook, and then you give them a bunch of kind of copy-paste stuff to sort out the tech tree, and then you add more stuff to it over time to make it, you know, make more sense over time. And with Poland, you have a fantastic way of doing that. So even though it doesn't have enough vehicles, in my opinion, to become its own independent tech tree, but you should also know I don't think any nation they could add to the game now has its own, or has enough vehicles and has enough kind of hope to become an independent tech tree. It could easily become the best sub-nation in the game. The game already has some fantastic ones, but if you have a look at Poland and what it can bring to the table, it is pretty nuts. And there's no way that Poland doesn't come to the table, by the way. This, as I said, is a nation with a very large player base, a very large history. There is no reason why it wouldn't come anywhere near the game. It already has in many different ways, with stuff like the Leopard 2PL. The only real question is how do you add it in other ways? And for me, I think the way that you do it is probably to Germany. Germany is one of those nations which doesn't need a lot of help, right? So therefore, if you looked at it from a European perspective, you could add it to France, even though they've got the Benelux stuff. You could add it to Italy once again, because of the whole allied thing right now. But generally, I think the idea that people have pushed for is to add it to Germany, because then Germany would get all of the eastern side of things, not just the western side of things. You could fill in the GDR stuff. Of course, there is the Lim 5 and the Leopard 2PL already being able to kind of combine those two nations together, and then it would fill out a lot of the gaps that we've talked about that Germany has, especially in its mid to high tier areas. Now, does Germany need it? No, of course not. They have and could just bring in all of the GDR stuff themselves, but if it's an opportunity to be able to bring in a bunch of Polish vehicles, then it's a good idea to do. You can get it sorted and then push it into the game. I'm hoping that in the future they do continue to expand nations. There are many nations which have really cool flags, really cool histories that I personally want to explore with you guys and to talk about. And Poland is easily one of them. They have so many weird and wonky variants of different things. If you've ever looked at, for example, the T54A ZET1, or the PT91, the Twaddy, or even some of the modernized T34s that they've created. There is a bunch of weird and wonderful things that they've made, and hopefully with Poland, Romania, and also, you know, other nations around that area, some of the old Yugo countries, it would be really cool to see all this stuff, and I hope we do. I really do, over time. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecovo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.